Okay, let's clean up after ourselves again. Okay, so we're going to come in and let's just delete all of this. Wherever you put that at in your theme, get rid of that. Okay, what we're going to talk about now is decisions. That's a very important part of writing code. It's the fact that you get some information, right? We stored it in variables, or we go and get it and then we just process it. We need to decide, do I run this code or that code? If this, then that, right? So decisions are critical. So here's one example. If, and then it's looking in some arguments that are being passed to it, and this is a key within an array. Okay, so within this, if this is not equal to, that's what that means right there. If it's not equal to the secondary, then I run this code. Okay, if it is equal to secondary, this code in here is not going to run. So think about it like when we talked about a function. Okay, so we have the opening curly brace, we have the closing curly brace. The code within that code block belongs to that if. It will not run until when? When will that code run? When what's inside of that parentheses there returns true. If it returns true, then it will run. If you wanted to do an else, you would do it like this, else. And now, when this is not true, okay, so nope, that one was not true. So then it's going to come out here and do the else. Think about it in our natural language. If the weather is nice and I'm not working, then I'm going to go to the beach or go do whatever you want to do, right? So in our natural language, we do that every day, all the time. We think about things in decisions. If this, then that. Well, that's how decisions work. Okay. So let's think about that. Let's go and take a look at some more code. Okay, here, I'm right back. Boy, this content width gives us a lot of things, doesn't it? Here, so in the 2017 theme, we can see check if the layout is one column. And we've got an if here and an if there, and then we can come down here. There's another if, and that's the end of those there. So we can see, all right, we're going to make a decision. And within that decision, if this decision is true, then we're going to run the code that's within these curly braces. So it will run that code right there. All right. Well, this code just happens to be another else if statement. Okay. So then we'll say, okay, if this code is true, then we'll run this code within those curly braces. You see that right there? Okay. Else if, well, okay, so this one was not true. Okay, so we're going to skip over that code. Then we're going to come down here and we're going to say else if, and if this one's true, yes, this is a page, then we'll do that code. All right. So now you saw a couple of different syntax here, didn't you? You saw if, else if, and then I put one in here for just else, like that. Okay, you can do it like this. These else ifs can stack up. We can go and do multiple of these else ifs. If this is a single, then I'll do this. Else, I'll do some default. Okay, so you can see how you can build these decisions. And each one of these decisions, we like to call a branch on the tree. Okay, so this one is that code block. Else we're going to do another branch, and we do that one. And then it could just keep getting stacked up. Well, here, let me show you one that is stacked. Just one sec. All right, I'm in the Genesis framework now. I'm in lib functions head.php. And you can see there are a lot of ifs in here. Okay, so I've got this if first. And if that's true, you don't even need to understand the code in here. All you need to know is that between the parentheses, if it returns true, then the code within its code block will run. Okay, so if that's true, then here's the stacked one that I showed you with the different branches as I've got an if, an else if, an else if, an else if, an else if. See that? Lots of different else ifs. So it could be any one of these. If that one, nope, that one wasn't true. Okay, how about this one? Nope, that's not true. Okay, how about that one? Nope, that's not true. Now, if this one, that's funny. If that comes back as true, it'll run that code block, and then it's going to skip over the rest of the else and the else ifs. It's done. Okay, let me say that again. All right, so if this one's true and that runs, then it's going to go down to the end, down here, where that's the last one. It skips over all of these, right? And it doesn't run those. Same thing anywhere along the way. So if this one here, I'll clean that off. If this one's false and that one's false, oh, but this one right here is true, then it runs the code from here to here. These don't run. So think about that. That makes sense, right? Put it into your natural language. If I'm done with work, then I'll go get something to eat. Else, I'll go and do this. Well, I'll keep working. So you can see that, okay, well, I'm not going to go and say if, and if that condition's true, I do this, and I also do the else. No, you skip over it. You're done. No more processing. In other words, only one decision's going to be run here. That's it, only one. One or none. Okay, one or none. The one that's true first runs. Okay, so, and it goes in this order, top to bottom. So if this one's true, that one runs and none of the others do. So if this one's false, but this one's true, that didn't run, this runs and none of the others. Okay, did you get that? I just want to make sure that you understand that. Now let's look at our syntax. I just want to make sure that you see this. It's not important what this code is in here. Don't worry about that right now. What I want you to focus on is just the structure and understanding the basics of how the if, else if, and else works. Okay, so we've got the if, that's a keyword. Then you have a parentheses. Within these parentheses is what's called a conditional expression. Let me write that down. I have a whole lab just on conditional expressions, which will go through and explain all the operators, how these work, how you can put together complex ones, and so on. Okay, so just know that we have a conditional expression which could be put in here. Then what comes back from that after you break it all the way down is it has to return true or false. That's it. So decisions only work on a true or false. The end result then would be, I have this whole expression here. Let me clean this off. I have all of this code, okay, but that all will break down into that function that's right here, this function, has to return true or false. I'm not going to explain how that code works there. I just want you to focus on that. If it's true, then it runs. If it's not, then it skips down to the next one. Do you get that? Okay. Now, there's an anomaly here with this. PHP lets you say, and I'm just going to put conditional expression in here. We're not going to worry about what the code is that runs that conditional expression. We're just going to use that generically. So PHP says, if, and then here, you could have just one line of code and you don't need curly braces. And when you read code out there in the wild, sometimes you're going to see it just like this. Okay, and then one line of code, and then it goes on. And there's no curly braces, and that might confuse you. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to confuse you. That's an alternative syntax. And what we say is don't ever do that. When you write your code, put the curly braces in. That way you know this is my code block. Okay? Matter of fact, WordPress coding standard says put that in there. So put it in. But just in case you see that, I wanted you to be aware. Now, the conditional expression. Okay, so we have the if. We're going to make a decision. And within here, we know a final decision is going to be made. It can be made up of multiple parts. Okay, so let's say, I'm not even going to use variables. I'm just going to use numbers. So let's say 10 is less than 20, if that's true, or 5 is greater than 10. Then I'll go and run this code. Okay, so how would this break down? Okay, well, it's going to first go, it's got to find out, is this true or false, this expression. So it goes here and it says, is 10 less than 20? Yes, that's true. Okay, this is the OR symbol right here. So it's just two pipes side by side. That's or. Okay, so think about that. How's an or work in your mind? It would be, if that's true or that's true, then it's true, right? Okay, so if you're thinking about a truth table, if this is true and that's false, it's still true. If that's false and this is true, it's still true. If that's false and that's false, well, no, it's false. Does that make sense to you? Okay, now let's go and do a different one. Okay, so let's look at this expression. Okay, so it's going to solve it right here. Start right here. Is this true or false? Is 3 less than 0? Nope, that's false. Okay, and that's or. Is 5 less than 1? Nope, that's false. Is the code that's in these curly braces, is it going to run? Yes or no? No. Because what gets returned from a false or a false is false. If false, nope, jump over that code block. Okay, so what happens? It says, okay, I'm going to go from here, this opening curly brace, to my closing curly brace and exit this code. I'm either going to go to the next line of code, if that's it, or if there's an else or an else if, I'll run that. Okay, did you get that? All right, let's do this again. Okay, let's do this again. Is 3 less than 0? No, that's false. Or is 5 greater than 1? Yes, that's true. A false or a true means this is true. Okay, so if true, is this going to run or not run? Yes, it's going to run that code. Okay, do you get that now? So now you just learned about the or. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay, this one means and. That means both sides have to be true for this to be true. Okay, so think about that. I'm going to go out to dinner if I'm done working and it's dinner time. Both have to be true, and then I'm going to leave and go and get something to eat for dinner. If it's morning for breakfast, I'm not going to go get dinner. If I'm still working while I'm working, I'm not going to go get dinner. It's and. Okay, so let's break this down then. Is 3 less than 0? No, that's false. Okay, so as soon as something's false, we know that's not going to be a true statement because it's false. False and that's true means it's still false. Okay, that code's not going to run. What if we switch that around and say, is 3 greater than 0? Well, now that's true. True and true means this is true. Okay, so there, you just learned a little bit of working with decisions. Okay, so that's the if. Now, what you learned with that was there's an if, a conditional expression goes in between, right? In between the parentheses. Then there's a code block that belongs to that if. That code only runs if this is true. All right. It can have an else if, and then the same repeats here. If that's true, then we'll run this code block. And you can have an else. Think of the else like a default. Okay? This is where your default stuff goes. If not that, then we'll come down here and default. None of these were true, so I'll come down here and do a default, whatever that might be. Okay, so does that make sense to you? Now let's just go and look at this again. And what you see is they're not working with numbers, they're working with a function. Okay, a function, right here. So they're going and getting some custom field. They're going to go get that out of the database. So they're saying, okay, that's the key. This is the post ID. Go to the database, bring it back. Was for this post ID, is that set? Yes or no? True or false? Okay. Does this one exist? Is it set? True or false? Okay. Let's look at some others. Up here, if this is a singular, that returns if it is true or false. Or the post ID is not equal to, and I'll explain this here in just one second, strictly not equal to null. Then we'll run this code. All right, let me explain that operator here real quick. In case you ever see this, I told you this one means not equal. All right, let's take a look. I'm just going to give you a real quick operator training here. And then you can go watch that lab on conditional expressions to learn more deeply about it. Okay, so we know that this means that we're equal. This side, the value of this side is equal to the value of that side. When I do strict, what it's saying is the value on this side is equal to the value on this side, and the data type is also equal to the value on this side. So if I had a string 10 and then I had an integer 10, this would return false. Up here, this would return true. Now, this might freak you out. You might go, wait a minute, how can string 10 be equal? Well, there's this thing in PHP called type juggling. PHP will go and convert this string into an integer because it says, well, you're trying to compare to an integer. Let me just convert that. When you do it this way, type juggling does not occur. It goes and it says, hey, you're a string. Over here, it's an integer. I'm going to check the data type. String and integer are not the same, even though, yeah, a 10 and a 10 is the same value. It's not the same and you get a false. You want to know more about that? Well, I'll give you some links. Okay, it's in docs. It's also in the variable bootcamp that I'll give you a link for as well. Okay, so we've got the equal to and we've got the strict. Well, then there's opposite of that, not equal. So this value is not equal to that value. Okay, a 9 is not equal to a 10. Okay, that would be true. It's just looking at the values and it will type juggle. So it's going to turn that 9 into an integer 9. Again, if you don't understand that, you need to go watch the variables bootcamp to understand that. Or you can go right into docs and take a look at type juggling, and it will specifically teach you just about that. Okay, if we use the strict, what do? We say, okay, I have, this is a string, this is an integer. Okay, so therefore this, the values are not equal and the data types are not equal, so therefore that's true. So it's checking both. Okay, so that's what that's doing. I just had to point that out to you as you were looking at this. Some of the other, okay, so I've shown you the or, I've shown you the and. Others that you can do are, as we said, equal to, the strict, equal. You can do greater than, less than, greater than, and equal to. You can do that a value is just not, which would be the inverse. So let me show you that. Okay, so is singular. If you put a not in front of it, and if is singular returns a false, what's the opposite of false? That's what this not is. It's an inverse. What's the opposite of false? So if I went not false, that then means true. Whoops. That will get converted into true. If I say not true, what's the inverse of true? Well, false. It's one or the other, right? Again, this doesn't make sense. You can go, I'll give you a link that you can go and watch that. That's in the conditional expression where I go through and I explain this to you. Okay, I think that's pretty good. What you can see from this is that by having these ifs in here, we're able to decide whether we're going to run a block of code or not run a block of code. We can make decisions about what code to run when we want to run it.